Hi there, welcome to another video looking at whether politics is the right subject for you. So I get a lot of inquiries from students who are in year 11 or even in year 10, and they ask me whether politics is a good subject for them. So you may be in year 10 and possibly you're going around to open days, you're trying to work out which college to go to as well as what sorts of combinations of subjects may work for you. You may be in year 11 and you may have chosen your 3 or 4 A-level subjects, and politics is one of them, but you're questioning whether politics is the right subject. You may be coming here during the summer holidays and you're thinking, well, how should I prepare for politics? Or it may be that you're coming to this video after a couple of lessons of politics and you're wondering whether you should keep politics as a subject. Every year I get students who say to me, maybe I've chosen the wrong subject. Maybe politics isn't for me. And they wonder whether it's going to change or whether they should change their subject early on in the year. If this is you, this video will help you to appreciate what politics is and what it isn't. Now, I am an editor of alevelpolitics.com. I've been teaching politics for 15 years. You can follow me on Twitter at Patel Shop, or I have a Substack account where I send out on a really regular basis news stories that are relevant to politics students and how to connect those news stories to the course. Now let's begin. Now I want to start with a series of pictures, and I want you to imagine a world in 2 years' time if you're just about to start A-levels. And I want you to think, what will you practically know when you've finished studying politics? So this is a picture of Boris Johnson and Partygate. And we know that Boris Johnson has been implicated in a number of parties. One particular party got him a fixed penalty from the Metropolitan Police. But there are a series of parties that really are questionable. These parties took place during COVID lockdown. Boris Johnson set the rules, and yet he was obviously breaking the rules. The question that a lot of people ask is, okay, why is Boris Johnson still in government? Why can't we get rid of him? You know, someone who's committed a number of offences, a number of things that have offended public opinion. How can it be that a prime minister remains in office? And there are a number of reasons why that is. When you study politics, you begin to realize the issues that surround removing a prime minister, and why actually in Britain it's not that easy to remove a prime minister. You may know that Boris Johnson went through a internal Conservative Party leadership contest, and that led to his victory. It wasn't a great victory, but he presented it as a victory. So what does that mean? We learn about the constitution in politics, and we learn about how actually there are very few rules surrounding the way that the prime minister's office is organized. But we also learn that the prime minister actually sets the rules himself. And so it's sometimes not very clear if a prime minister is found breaking the rules, what you can do about that. A prime minister can just change the rules. Now, all of this may sound strange, but how can it be that a prime minister sets the rules for himself and then the prime minister can change the rules if they break the rules? But when you understand the British Constitution and understand the way Britain works, all of this fits into place. So politics will give you a good understanding, a good grasp of UK politics. I have a student who said to me that by Christmas, so she started studying politics in September, and by Christmas, she said, I can now hold a conversation with the adults in my family and I don't sound stupid because I sort of now know what politics is about. When you learn politics in the first few months, it all falls into place. You really appreciate what politics is about. So you will understand things like Partygate. Rishi Sunak is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Rishi Sunak had this policy, the Eat Out to Help Out scheme. And the scheme, of course, was part of his COVID measures. Rishi Sunak spent something like 400 billion on COVID recovery alone. And the question always comes, okay, well, where did he get that money from? And how are we going to pay this money back? When you study politics, you get to appreciate how this system works, how debt works, what it means to get into debt. Britain has a really huge debt, and what does it mean to pay back that debt? We also learn about how some governments, like the David Cameron government, believed that debt was bad, and he argued there needs to be what we call austerity, there need to be cuts. And then you've got the Boris Johnson government, which is the same Conservative Party who argues the complete opposite. Boris Johnson has intervened in the economy. Rishi Sunak, as the Chancellor, the person in charge of the purse strings, has intervened in the economy. And so we understand why, what motivates two types of Conservatives to do opposite things. And so by the time you end your study of politics, you're really going to appreciate the different blends of opinion that exist in the British political system. If you study US politics, and I'm going to talk about that, you will understand the recent Roe versus Wade judgment. So this is a judgment by the Supreme Court who overturned the Roe judgment of 1973. Roe versus Wade was this landmark ruling by the Supreme Court back in 73 to, in effect, make abortion permitted in all states. And it prevented states from setting very stringent rules on abortion. What does this all mean for women's rights, for abortion? When you study US politics, and typically you study it in year 2, you will find that you'll appreciate and understand what the most important country probably in the world, the United States, what underlies its political system. How does its political system work? Why can't the president overturn this judgment? The president, Biden, wants to overturn it. Why does he find it very difficult to overturn? So again, you're going to have a very good understanding of US politics. Now, this is a picture of Putin going fishing, and he likes to pose in shirtless pictures. And recently, he sent out a number of pictures of himself, and it was a response to Boris Johnson, who said at the G7 summit that Vladimir Putin was acting according to toxic masculinity. If he was a woman, he would not have invaded Ukraine. Now, I think that's a bit of a silly thing to say, to be honest. But even sillier, Putin had to confirm his toxic masculinity by sending this picture out to say, and I think he said something like, Boris Johnson, no one will want to see him shirtless. And I suspect that's quite true. But it tells you something about international politics and where international politics is. We learn about this in politics. What are the actors? Why are individuals so important in international politics? Now, I've said something here. I've said that, you've got US politics and you've got global politics. Potentially, you will study one or the other. And I'll explain that as we go through today's PowerPoints. And lastly, environment. If you study politics, you begin to appreciate why has it been so difficult for international actors like companies, but in particular, actors like countries. Why has it been so difficult for these countries to come together and to deal with the climate crisis? And it is a crisis now. But why is it so difficult to deal with such a problem? And we learn about this in global politics. We learn about the Copenhagen Agreement, and we learn about the Kyoto Agreement and Paris and Glasgow. And we learn about how countries like the United States and China, who are the biggest emitters of CO2, how these countries have sometimes come together, but very rarely do enough to deal with the catastrophe that is climate change. And so we dig deeper. It goes beyond the rhetoric. We dig deeper and try to appreciate what's going on in the world. Now, all of this was just to express why it's important to study politics. I think politics is a fantastic subject. I think politics allows you to understand the world. I get visits from students who have gone on to university, and they still say to me that what they learn in politics, they haven't learned again at university level, even if they're studying, by the way, politics at university, because at university you tend to go deep into a few issues. With A-level politics, you study a really broad set of issues. You can, in effect, study politics and hold conversations with people, knowing that most people actually in Britain do not study politics, and they don't have a grasp of the theory, and they don't have the grasp of the specifics. Now, what is A-level politics? Before I talk about if the subject is right for you, let me give you an overview of the subject. Politics typically covers 3 areas. 2 of these areas are compulsory in the sense that you don't have a choice. There's no choice in terms of what you're going to be taught. And in one area, your school picks the choice, right? So let me explain that. Topic 1 looks at UK politics and UK government. I'm going to explain that here. Topic 2 looks at political ideas, and topic 3 looks at either US politics or global politics. Now, by the way, I'm simplifying this. So if you're a politics teacher, you're going to be shouting out loud and saying, well, wait a minute, what are you saying, topic 1 and topic 2? I'm simplifying it for the students who haven't yet studied politics. So you look at UK politics and government. The majority of what you look at in politics will actually be UK politics, right? Some students come into politics thinking that straight away they're going to be learning about, I don't know, the Arab Spring, or they're going to be learning about the Middle East crises in the Middle East, or they're going to be learning about sub-Saharan Africa. You may learn about that later on, but initially you're going to learn about British UK politics. And UK politics does have drama, but it's not as dramatic possibly as, say, US politics or as global politics. So you've got to be ready to study an entire year of UK politics. You will also learn about political ideas. Now, political ideas, I'll explain later, but that's sort of conservatism and socialism. And as I said, there's a US politics or a global politics option, and your school decides that. Now, if you're watching this video before you formally begin, you may want to ask your school which option they teach, because you may decide upon a sixth form just based on whether they teach US politics or global politics. And I'm going to go through what they are so that you've got an understanding of what you prefer possibly as a student of politics. Okay. So let's go through the highlights of the syllabus. I'm not going to bore you with every single topic because I don't think you need to know that at the moment. Your teacher will give you an explanation of the syllabus in the first few lessons, and I'm sure you'll get a booklet which goes through what exactly you're going to learn, right? But I'm just going to give you a summary of the syllabus based on what I've said here. So you have you've got to learn, as I said, UK politics and government in year 1, and UK politics covers the main political parties, Conservatives, Labour, Liberal Democrats, and what they stand for, the electoral system and how it works, the role of pressure groups in our system, what is democracy, for example, what are rights, for example. You get an understanding of the last few elections, in fact, elections since 1979, and why is it that one political party won that election, or why is it that one political party lost that election? So all of that you get to understand when you study UK politics. I think it's a great topic, and I think, or series of topics, and I think that students come away really appreciating what the different political parties stand for and how politics works in a practical way in the UK. You then go on to study UK government, and in UK government you learn the structures of UK government, including the Prime Minister and the Cabinet and Parliament and Supreme Court, but also you learn the basics of the UK Constitution. What is it about the UK Constitution that makes it quite unique compared to other constitutions in the world, right? And so this is really very much about structures. It's like the things surrounding politics, the institutions that surround UK politics. So here you get a feel for the practical, and here you get a feel for, I don't know, the theory behind politics and the structures that cover UK politics. So you get a holistic view of UK politics by the time you've finished both politics and government. Now, you also have to study political ideas, and that allows you to go under the hood of politics, right? So you're digging deeper You're trying to understand political philosophy. You're understanding the ideas of conservatism and liberalism and socialism, Karl Marx and John Locke and Burke. You're trying to appreciate political philosophy here. If you also want to study philosophy, this is a really good crossover. There are lots of political philosophers you learn in philosophy, but we learn that here in the political idea side of politics. And I think a lot of students enjoy it. Typically, it's taught at the end of year one. You sort of have to appreciate politics in general before you can appreciate the thinkers and the philosophers behind politics. But I think it's a really great topic. You also have this non-core option. Again, your teacher, your school chooses which non-core political philosophy they will choose. So, for example, I teach multiculturalism. Lots of schools teach feminism. Others teach anarchism or nationalism. So it's a theoretical topic or series of topics that you learn. By the way, I should have said what I'm giving you here largely covers both boards. So it covers the Edexcel and the AQA boards, right? However, with AQA, there is not a global politics option. So the US politics option is not an option if you study AQA. So you may want to ask your school which exam board we cover. If you're studying Edexcel, then Edexcel covers both US politics or global politics. And again, it's up to your school to decide which one they are going to teach. I prefer the global politics option, although I've taught the US politics option previously, but I quite like the global politics, and I think students like it as well. So in US politics, you learn about the US political system, how it works, the party system, for example. You learn about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and you learn about Barack Obama, and you learn about how they could and could not pass the types of policies they wanted to pass. You learn about the Supreme Court, as I said, the different institutions that keep the presidency in check. You learn about Congress. It's a very detailed look at US politics. I would say, and I'm not exaggerating here, I would say by the time you finish US politics, you probably will know much more about US politics than most Americans, because you don't formally study these things in any great depth. And I think A-level gives you that level of depth. Now, in global politics, you learn about contemporary global issues, such as globalization and the environment, the IMF, the rise of China. You learn about the decline of the United States. I think global politics is just a fantastic component. You know, students who study it, they go away really understanding the world. There is an overlap, by the way, with geography here and actually with history. If in history you study Cold War, we look at the contemporary relationships between the United States and Europe, United States and Russia and China. So, of course, the themes of the Cold War are carried on into global politics. You learn about principles like globalization, the rise of China, which overlap with geography. And I think there's a really good synergy with geography. I haven't actually said it, but also there is a synergy. There's an overlap with economics. Those who study politics also get to appreciate the political economy quite well. I mean, I know my students who study economics and politics, they always say that, yeah, we've studied that in economics, sir. Or we've looked at something in economics that we've already studied in politics, right? I speak to economics teachers who say the same to me. They really enjoy teaching politics students. In fact, I've spoken to now history teachers who say the same. You know, politics students bring something different to the table in history lessons. So I think politics is a subject that spins into lots of other subjects. If you're going to go and study law, for example, politics is actually a really good subject for law because it gives you a really good understanding of the political system and the constitution, which of course you need to know about when you study the legal system. Right, so do I need prior knowledge? Do you need prior knowledge before you study politics? No, you don't. Not many subjects at GCSE will prepare you for politics. Maybe history and geography at GCSE may prepare you for politics. You may get citizenship in some schools, and that may prepare you for politics. But it's a subject that's only taught at A level in schools. So it's not a subject you're going to need to know a lot about. Your teachers will spend probably a couple of lessons, a couple of months possibly, just grounding you on the basics of politics. So you don't have to come into politics with a great amount of knowledge. However, you should be ready to write essays. Now, this is a really important point. In politics, the exams are all about essays. You don't get any short answer questions. They're all essay-based questions. If you don't like writing longer pieces and you don't think you're going to want to write longer pieces, so say, for example, you're a mathematician or a scientist and you really don't like, the days of writing long essays are behind you, then I think you're going to struggle with politics. I mean, I tutor students who do sciences as well as politics, and some of them do struggle with the essay writing. So I help them with essay writing. And I'm not saying, by the way, it's impossible. We should all be learning new skills and all should be developing new skills. But just bear that in mind. If you don't like the essay side, then you've got to question yourself as to whether politics is for you. A lot of people think, well, I'm going to study, I don't know, maths and physics, and I'm going to do politics because I like debating. That's true. In politics lessons, there's plenty of debates. But I will say to you, when it comes to it, your teachers are going to say, okay, you've done enough talking now. You need to now start writing essays, right? So essay writing is the key to passing politics as a subject. So I would say that bear that in mind. Also, you need to have some interest in politics. That's not sort of, of course, we all have an interest in the world around us. So what do I mean by that? It doesn't mean that you've got to have a lot of political knowledge, but ask yourself the following question. This is a test I set for students in year 11 before they join a sixth form, and they come to me in open day and they say, well, is politics a subject for me? I say to them, well, I can convince you that politics is a great subject, and I can tell you that we're going to do lots of debating and we're going to do lots of writing, and it opens your eyes up and you're going to be able to talk to adults. But fundamentally, you've got to ask yourself, can I watch a program like Question Time on the BBC? The most irritating program you can watch. Can I watch this program? And at the end of it, can I say to myself, I found that quite interesting. I didn't understand everything that was said, but I think I want to learn more. If you do want to learn more after watching Question Time, then it's the sort of subject for you. If you go to sleep 5 minutes in, then I would say you're going to struggle with politics, because politics is about keeping up with the news. You've got to be contemporary. You've got to follow political parties. If you don't find that sort of stuff interesting, contemporary events interesting, and you can't watch a program like Question Time, which, by the way, is a basic entry-level program for most people. If you can't watch that and find it interesting, then I think you will struggle with politics. I think that's my litmus test, by the way. Can I watch Question Time and find it interesting? By the way, you're going to throw stuff at the TV. It's a terrible program for information. And often you find even politicians on Question Time, they play to the audience rather than give a factually correct answer. But it's not about that. It's about whether you find the issues debated interesting. Politics is not a textbook subject. If you want a textbook subject, history is a textbook subject. I'm not trying to downplay it. I mean, history is a really good subject and really important subject, of course. But, in history, you can rely on a textbook. In politics, you don't rely on a textbook. I mean, I've got students who say to me at the end of the 2 years, actually, sir, we issue textbooks. And they say to me, sir, we didn't actually read this textbook. And I say, yeah. A textbook is really there to give you some basic information, which you learn in class. But you've got to go out there and be interested in current events and try to understand why something is happening. So my advice to you is, if you feel that you can't get away from a textbook and you want something, you're not going to be able to venture out into the world of politics and try to understand it, then maybe you got to question, is politics the subject for me? I'm not trying to say to you that politics is not the best subject in the world. I think it is, right? I think it's a fantastic subject. That's why I teach it. And that's why, by the way, when I teach politics, I don't feel like I'm doing a job. I feel like I'm doing something which I'm just so interested in. A fun fact, I wasn't a teacher previously. I mean, I worked in industry for some time, and I went into teaching. And when I went into teaching, I found that politics was the only subject I probably would teach, because I was just so interested in politics, right? I would go into work with a paper. I would, commute into work, listening to Radio 4 Today. And so it just became part of me that, I wanted to understand what's going on in the world. And so it just became, the subject for me. And I think you will become like that when you study politics, right? I hope that makes sense. Okay. How can I prepare for politics? Well, preparation over the summer break is probably a good idea because it's a new subject. It's probably good to get that interest in politics started. Now, you can prepare by keeping up to date with UK politics as well as up to date with US or global politics, or even both. I mean, why not? Now, the best way to do this is probably to listen to podcasts. I mean, I used to give out reading lists to students, and I found that students find reading quite difficult in the summer holidays. So I don't blame you for not putting a lot of time into reading. But I think these podcasts are great. Go to your, grab your phone and download a podcast app if you haven't got a podcast app. And any of the podcast apps you download will allow you to access these, right? So, for example, Apple Podcasts, or I don't know, Stitcher or Google Podcasts would allow you, Spotify would allow you to access any one of these podcasts. So they're multi-platform programs. So A Week in Westminster on the BBC is pretty good. Political Thinking by Nick Robinson, fantastic interview program. Again, really very much about UK politics. The Best of Tonight with Andrew Marr. It's an LBC program. Andrew Marr is, of course, one of the best political commentators in the UK. The Intelligence from The Economist. I must say, it's a fantastic program. I really like. Every day I just download it. I like running, and I just listen to The Intelligence while I run, because it just gives me an understanding of the world, UK and global politics, in a sort of half an hour program. So I think it's a really good daily program to listen to. And it's interesting, by the way, and they make it very interesting. The Political Party with Matt Ford is a good podcast. Matt Ford is a comedian, and he interviews people from the world of politics. But his interviews are quite searching and quite in-depth, and I quite like that. Turning to US politics, Simon Marks' reporting is just fantastic, right? These are like small programs, 5-minute programs, 5-minute interviews with Simon Marks, and he keeps you up to date with US politics. Watch out for the American Week, which he does every Friday, because it gives you a 15-20 minute summary of what's happened in America for that week. I love it. I mean, I think, and Simon Marks is so engaging as a journalist, so it's worth downloading. Checks and Balances from The Economist, a little bit more highbrow, a little bit more, I think it's much more detailed. I would say that maybe not for the faint-hearted. If you want to, once you've started US politics, it's probably a good program for that. The Rachman Review is really good for global politics. The World Next Week is really good to be up to date with global politics. This is a good program. GPS with Fareed Zakaria. Fareed Zakaria is the Andrew Marr, I suppose, of US global politics or US politics. And he does this CNN program, which also comes out as an audio podcast. And it's fantastic. I would say, by the way, even if the only thing you do is listen to these podcasts, you will be up to date with politics, right? So do dip into these podcasts, right? So that's a summary of why I think politics is a great subject, but some of the caveats, some of the reservations that I would like to express. I think politics is a fantastic subject. I really enjoy teaching it. And you should ask my students. Sometimes they say to me, "Sir, you're always happy when you teach politics, right?" And that's because, and by the way, I'm very cynical about politicians and politics. I had a student who said to me in year 2, just at the beginning of year 2, and she said, "Sir, I never listened to you in year 1." And I said, "Okay." She said, I never paid attention in politics lessons in year one. Okay, that makes me understand why you got such an atrocious result at the end of year one. She goes, because I wanted to be happy. If you study politics to be happy, you're going to be disappointed, right? Politics is not going to make you a happy person, unless you enjoy. I mean, I'm now understanding why I'm so happy when I teach politics. Maybe there's a sadistic side to me, but I've just uncovered in this video. But when you study politics, you're going to go through highs and lows, right? It is a really interesting subject, but it can depress you, right? It can make you feel hopeless about the world, because sometimes things are pretty bad, whether it's UK politics or whether it's global politics, things, or US politics, things don't look good, particularly at this moment in time. I mean, I'm talking in 2022. You may be watching this in 23 or 24. And I suspect in 23 and 24, the world is going to be even more bleak than it was in 2022, right? If you are watching this in 23 or 24, leave a comment to say whether you think the world is better or the world is worse when you're watching it. So if you're watching this in 2030, goodness, 2030 is going to be by 2030 the world is probably going to be pretty dire. Sorry about this, guys, but it's interesting nevertheless, and it keeps me in business. It keeps me in a job. I think it's a great subject, and I would highly recommend studying it. And do watch out for my other videos. Subscribe to this YouTube account. Thank you for the 71 subscribers who have now subscribed to my account. Do subscribe, because I'm going to be putting up plenty more content as the months and years go by. I used to do videos, but only put them up on my website, alevelpolitics.com. But a number of students said, "Sir, why are you not on YouTube?" So I've decided to take the plunge and start up a YouTube account. So do subscribe to my YouTube account. If you are going to start politics, or if you're already studying politics, this Substack account, my A-Level Politics account, is brilliant. It's a newsletter where I send out political examples pertinent to the politics course. So do subscribe to that. Lastly, I do revision conferences every year. Around 200-300 students attend those. I'm probably this year, so 22, 23, I'm probably going to do these conferences more widely. At the moment, they're only in London, but I'm probably going to do them in different parts of the country. So again, the best way to find out about those is to subscribe to my Substack account, and I will send out reminders for that. So that's really enough from me. Do send me comments you may have in the comment section below, and I normally answer these comments within a day or so. But good luck to you, and I'm sure you're going to love the subject.